All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hack and Grow Rich. And today on with me is my co-host, Mr. Bart Baggett, a success and motivational coach to millionaires and startups alike. Bart has been an entrepreneur and in the personal development and success field for, gosh, I don't know how many years, Bart.
I was 23 when I published my first book, so I threw my hat in the ring really early. And the other voice you hear is the amazing Shaahin Cheyene. And I don't know if people know a lot about you. You're kind of under the radar, but you're one of the most successful people I know, not only selling on Amazon, but with your new book, Billion, you talk about your whole journey in the pharmaceutical or anti-pharmaceutical field. So you're in really good hands today if you want to learn, be a little wealthier, be a little happier, and have a little more success.
I agree. I agree. And we will promise have guests on the show. I know last week we talked about Napoleon Hill, and we were going to talk about Think and Grow Rich and Napoleon Hill, but we are going to save that for a future episode because both Bart and I have people on both sides of the Napoleon Hill controversy that we want to have on when we have that show. So we can talk about, did Napoleon Hill really do what he claimed, or was Napoleon Hill a fraud?
That's a great topic. And for those of you that are kind of young, I had a salesman as a father. So he sort of made me read Think and Grow Rich. He made me read The Greatest Salesman in Babylon, like I'm 14, 15. And, that really formed some of my belief systems about the world. And I remember thinking with Think and Go Rich, I'm like, they never really tell you what it is. They kind of allude to it. And it was sitting at my desk. I'm like, you know what? I think it's in the title. I think I get it. I think I get it now. It was kind of elusive to me, but that was really the start of a movement which I think most successful entrepreneurs have embraced. Whether it's the Rich Dad Poor Dad series or the Michael Gerber books, like we need to have pioneers ahead of us so that we don't make the same dumb mistakes. And of course, to me, that's a very basic 101 book. For some people, it's life changing, really life changing, Shreen. So I can't wait to talk about that whole phenomenon.
Yeah. And then, more interestingly, if he was a fraud and it is a work of fiction, where, I don't know if you guys know this, but in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill makes a series of claims that have since been disputed by a couple people, or maybe more than a couple people. So, can you find value in a work if you know that the work is a work of fiction? Um, Interesting, right? Is
Yeah,
could it still have value to you?
I was writing some jokes because I'm doing stand up again, and I was writing this joke about Joseph Smith, who's the founder of the Mormon religion, and it was basically like, look, if you have two gold tablets written by God, what's the odds of you losing those things? Like they're heavy, they're hard to track down, and if they did get stolen, they'd shown up. They'd shown up by now, right? So, but my point is, I really like Mormons. I love hiring Mormons. There's a lot of value in that religion, but that whole story about the gold tablets, I kind of like, maybe that's not true. So it's exactly the same way. There can be a lot of value that comes out of the stuff, even though the source material may be a little bit questionable.
Yeah. Yeah. But, like anything as hackers, and this is an episode of Hack and Grow Rich, we explore all avenues. And sometimes an important part of that is suspending judgment, which really brings me to our topic for this evening, which I think you have a lot to say. And I don't know if you want to share some stuff as well, Bart. But the topic is belief and how our beliefs shape who we are. And I always found this part really fascinating because a lot of people scientifically say, well, it doesn't matter if you believe in gravity. You jump out the window, you're going to fall to the ground. And I think to some extent that is true, or to a great degree, that is true. You can't fight natural laws with your beliefs. But in a world where things are much more subtle, when we're talking about humans and a world run by human emotions, if you look around you, things like the stock market, it doesn't matter what these companies do. It doesn't matter how much product they sell or service they sell. I mean, yeah, it matters, but at the end of the day, what shifts stock price is human emotion. I learned that from day trading commodities, futures. I was a day trader for several years. And I learned that sometimes it doesn't make sense, but it does make sense because it's all based on human emotions. It doesn't matter what the actual future of the oil market is. What matters is the emotion behind that, which was led to the famous quote in the 80s movie, the classic 1980s movie with Michael Douglas, Wall Street, where he says greed is good. And Michael Douglas, really in that film, talking about greed as far as what we traditionally think of greed, but also as far as belief goes. He in that film is a perfect example of a character that has this unshakable self-belief, and he believes that the world is a certain way, and he goes in there and molds and shapes the world to his beliefs, which is what make him such a formidable opponent to all those that oppose him. And of course, I mean, this is an old movie, so I doubt we're going to have very many spoiler alerts. I remember it, towards the end of the film, he does some unsavory dealings that lead him to, a path of unsavory results.
Well, that's that idea of belief system. If you look at the Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged from Ayn Rand, I mean, that's a set of belief systems around human behavior. And her belief was that, greed is good, selfishness is good, and if everyone does that, everyone prospers. And of course, if you hate Ayn Rand or hate some of the people that follow her, it's the opposite of communism. And so the belief systems really move all the way up from the individual up to political systems, 100 years later. And we get stuck in these systems, and then we sometimes don't stop and analyze if it's true. Like, is it true? So that's really the topic. And I think for our audience tonight, it's not just belief systems like religion or politics, which we like to stay away from, is that how does your belief systems affect your ability to be wealthy and to be happy? And to even recognize that you might have a limiting belief from your parents or from your religion, etc. And changing that one belief could be the domino that springs open all kinds of opportunities for you.
I love that. So, okay. So before we get into limiting beliefs, I think that follows later in our conversation. I think that's super important. So I think I'm going to ask you to define that, but let's hold on to that for a second. So I maybe, let's say 20 something years ago, realized that I had this skin condition called eczema. I think a lot of people have it. And I had a fairly severe case of it. It's terrible. It makes your skin looks dry, it flakes off, it's red, you look like a leper most of the day. And so I walked into, dermatologist after dermatologist, and none of them had anything good to say. And finally I walk into like the head of the department, the top of the heap, the king kahuna of dermatologists, right? And most of these guys, by the way, now have moved on to plastic surgery because it's the only thing that pays. And there's like 3 medicines they have for most dermatological issues, and everything else they just are like, oh, sorry. So walked into this guy's office, kind of like this big kahuna, head of the department, professor, diddly diddly do, PhD, doddly doddly, all that stuff. And we're talking. The guy, he does not ask me what kind of diet I have. He does not ask me any of that stuff. He takes a look. He goes, yep, looks like eczema. I say, okay, great. How are we going to solve it? He goes, oh, solve it. He was flabbergasted. He almost like he's never heard that before. And I said, yeah, dude, how are we going to cure this thing? He goes, well, let me tell you this. It's a deteriorating disease. So as you age, you are going to get much worse. And the cure that we have is a treatment. We can just manage your symptoms, and you'll eventually get worse and deteriorate to the point where it's terrible, and and it'll be itchy and uncomfortable, and you look like a leper. And that's life, dude. Live with it, right? That's all we got. Here's some steroids, here's some antibiotics, here's some, creams that'll give you 3 million side effects. And I remember feeling very dejected, thinking to myself, currently I am sitting across from a guy with all kinds of diplomas on the wall. I mean, this guy he must have had a big frame budget because he had a whole lot of diplomas hanging on the wall, right? I mean, it was like, I think if he was a general, he would have had lots of those pins and stripes and stars and all that kind of stuff. And he had every award and pictures of famous people whose skin he had dealt with. And I mean, this guy had them all. And I'm going, man, this guy's an authority, right? And it didn't say doctor, it said on his white thing, it said professor and MD. And, you know, this is every diddly thing on his thing. And so in that moment, my belief is this is a guy that knows more than me. And, you know, I'm going to deteriorate until I'm like, they're going to have to put me on Leper Island. And then I left this guy's office, right? I was like, is there nothing we can do? He said, absolutely not. I am Professor Diddly D, and let me tell you, there's nothing you can do. So I went on a journey. It took me 5 years. I figured out how to cure it. Am I 100%? No. I'm 98% cured from eczema. So one of the things I learned was that when I left this guy's office, my belief structure was, and this is a limiting belief, was holding me back. And that limiting belief that you're talking about was reinforced by just bullshit, somebody else's belief structure. It wasn't my belief structure. When I walked in there, my belief was, I'm going to go see this dude. I'm paying, you know, whatever hundreds of dollars an hour this guy's charging, and he's going to fix it. It's his job. The reality was he's just a mechanic and he knows how to fix one kind of car. And, you know, he's trying to fix a Toyota, and I brought him an Italian supercar and he doesn't know how to fix it. Not that I'm an Italian supercar, but I like to think of myself that way. So what happened, and this is crazy, is that I started traveling and I started trying anything and everything, right? Because you got nothing to lose if they tell you it's a deteriorating condition and, you know, it's degrading this, that, and the other. You're like, all right, well, it can only get worse. So if I do something and it has some effect. So I tried everything from mud to clay to topical stuff. And at the end of the day, and if somebody wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to share this formula that I discovered. It's not a product that I sell. It's actually a protocol that you do every day for 90 days. And I'm not a doctor. I am, you know, by no means in a place to give anybody medical advice. So please know, if you're listening to this podcast, do not take anything I say as medical advice. Please go consult with a doctor, somebody that has MD after their name, and have your physician tell you if any treatment that you undergo is appropriate for you. So I just had to give that disclaimer. But for me, 99% solved with a mixture of salt, a very specific type of salt, and a couple herbs. Zero side effects, nothing like that. And as long as I've been doing it, I've been clear, almost completely clear. And it worked better than all these medicines. Now, if I would have accepted this guy's belief structure, I would have started popping some of these pills, putting on some of those creams. Then I couldn't get off of them because, you know, it would have some kind of side effects and, you know, whatever that story is. And I would have gone down that line and just adopted their belief structure. And if I adopted their belief structure, I would have been down his road, which led to deterioration. But I said, no, I decided not to accept that belief. I told myself, he doesn't know shit. I don't have to believe what he believes. That's his opinion. That's not my fucking opinion. That's his opinion. So great, dude. You go down the deterioration pathway. I'm going to go find a cure. And I did. I didn't give up until I found a cure. Now, this is an interesting thing. One of my good friends, Dr. Warren, who is a leading world surgeon, told me, you know, I've had many phone calls with him, and he is a scientist at heart, one of the top doctors in the world. We should have him on the show. And I remember telling him about one of the treatments I was going through, or, you know, trying one of these natural treatments. And I said, you know, buddy, there's no clinicals behind this. And he just stopped. He said, Shaahin, you need a clinical trial of one person for this to work. You. He says, I don't care about any of this other stuff. Clinical trials are based on thousands of people and years of study and all this, but it doesn't matter. If you take something and it works for you and achieves the result that you want, nothing else matters. And this can be applied to any area of your life. And we talk about Steve Jobs in the Walter Isaacson book, where Steve Jobs talks about Isaacson talks about Steve Jobs' reality distortion field, where he refused to believe the limitations of the engineers and all the people around him, and sometimes he refused to believe in the laws of physics. But it led to these results. So what do you have to share about beliefs? I know that you have a diagram you might want to share.
Yeah, I mean, belief systems are to me the most critical piece of a transformational journey. So whether somebody is looking for happiness, like they're off to India for a couple of months, or they're just trying to break through their financial ceiling, one of the first things that I would always take people through a seminar is to do a real deep dive into what their core beliefs were from childhood, their beliefs around money, beliefs around love, beliefs around men or women, beliefs around themselves, and they articulate it into like a sentence. And what's interesting, Shaahin, is that when people finally stumble across something, it's as if you're saying the sky is blue. And they're like, well, the sky's blue. And at night it's black. Like everybody knows this, right? So if you say things like, rich people are bad, or money's hard to come by, or, the government always wants to screw you. Like some of these things, people are like, yeah, that's true. Like that's absolutely true. Rich people are all bad. And just like and those people, I grew up in a small Christian church, and they would say, "Listen, man, you cannot get to heaven through the eye of a needle. It's like Huck Finn in the eye of the needle." And I'm like, "Yeah, I've seen a needle. That seems like really difficult, right?" And only years later, say, the eye of the needle in the Bible was like this really big this beautiful doorway for camels. I'm like, well, why did they misinterpret it at my little church? And so you have these limiting beliefs, and people think that they're right. And so then you argue them as like arguing politics, like you're fighting. And so if you can finally let them go, okay, maybe I don't know anything about anything. and then the most demonstrative way to get people to adjust their beliefs is like testimonials of other people. I think that's why if you ever see a sales presentation like an infomercial or multi-level, they just get one person after another saying, I'm a truck driver and I didn't know nothing and I did this thing and now I'm really rich. And you're like, well, that guy can do it, I can do it. So there's plenty of ways to sort of bounce that belief system, but I think the awareness that you may have it, like if you think all women are bad or all men are evil or rich people are this, I mean, just think about it. If you say all rich people are blank, what comes to mind? I'm like, fun. Like, yeah, let's go hang out with those guys, right? But I didn't always think that. And so that's the first step, is just establishing it. And there's probably been many, many books written on this. And I think a lot of the coaches, I don't consider myself a life coach, but when we take people through seminars, you do have to confront the fact that you as an individual have beliefs, you have values, and then you make decisions based on that. And so what you said is totally true. If you absolutely believe that your eczema was uncurable, you would never have jumped on the journey. If I believe that I can never figure out how to write a book, I would never have started writing a book at 22 years old, right? But I said, I want to be an author. I don't know how. I don't have any authors in my family. What I do? I just went and hustled, and I read books, and I met people, and then I figured out, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. But you're not guaranteed success because you believe it, but you're guaranteed failure if you don't believe it. So you said guaranteed that you're going to get on the football team or be the star of the play, or even me being a good comedian or a good public speaker. But if I believe I was terrible or I never had the skill set, I would never take the first step. And so it's such an important part to find out where the limiting beliefs are, because if you don't believe you're lovable or you don't believe you can be rich, then you'll never take the first step. For a lot of people listening, if you have a real job or a real job or 9 to 5, with the internet, there's all this information about being an entrepreneur. But I've met so many people that up until the age of 20, 18, 20, their options were go to the military or get a job. Like that was just their options from their family. No one ever said, why don't you build a company? Like I know our world, Shaahin, most of our friends are entrepreneurs. So for us, it's like, well, what are you going to build next? What are you going to create next? But that's not the dialogue in the majority of people. It's, well, what kind of job am I going to get? Maybe a doctor or a lawyer. But it was never like, I'm just going to build a company and exit with $15 million or $50 million. So if you can surround yourself, and if you're listening to this podcast, you're obviously an extraordinary human being that is surrounding themselves with a different type of philosophies. But those belief systems end up taking you to a destination. Let me see if I can share a screen here for those of you that are on video. This is in the book Success Secrets of the Rich and Happy. This bike, by the way, is totally free for you guys if you go to getbartsbook.com free. But this is a belief of childhood. And what I was attempting here, Shaahin, is what happens after 15 years? What if you've
Mm.
got kids that believe his life is unfair? What if you have kids that at 15 that say honest people can't have nice things? We're all equal regardless of color. Violence equals control and power, right? I'm a musical prodigy. Like if you thought, and by the way, I think we have a mutual friend named Dave. He was a musical prodigy. He was literally leading orchestras at like age 16. Like what they end up doing after they believe that, compared to me who believed I didn't have any musical skill set. So it took me until age 40, Shaahin, to pick up the guitar and take lessons because they didn't believe I was any good at music. So what you do is just draw a line between these ideas at childhood and the result as 10 years later. My favorite one is serial killer.
Yeah.
So as a
Many of
handwriting
which were
expert,
vegetarian, by the way.
vegetarian. Well, that would be. Did I get it wrong? Is one on there? I think all life is beautiful would be the right one. All life is beautiful. Um, so I was serial killer. So I think I was on Montel Williams talking about serial killer. It's one thing we have in common, by the way. We're both on Montel Williams, and I think that was a show we were talking about. It could have been Lisa Gibbons. And serial killers have certain personality traits, but the most common habit, if you have children, do you have any idea what the most common red flag from a child that ends up being a serial killer? Do you have any idea?
Torturing animals?
It is correct. Torturing animals. And you know what the belief behind that is?
Empathy. Lack of empathy?
Well, yes, but they believe we're all animals and
Oh,
I'm the stronger animal. So there's no distinction between humans and animals. They all believe we're animals and they're going to get killed too one day. And so that belief that, honest people can't have nice things, they become a thief. Honest day's work, honest day's wages, that's just a construction worker, right? This is what my dad told me. I got to work hard, work hard, work hard. Musical prodigy, Grammy Award winner. Honest people can't have nice things, thief. And so you end up with the results like that. I think we missed one right there. There's animal have souls, vegetarian. That was the right one that was absent on the first chart there. But yeah, if you believe that animals have souls, it's more likely you'll find this tribe of hippy dippy vegetarians, which you live in Venice, so that's all your friends,
but
and I love them.
Kobe beef don't have soul, right? Kobe beef, it's so good. We had some yesterday for my birthday. My wife took me to Maestro's and we had this like it's Kobe beef does not have soul, so and it's mostly vegetarian.
it's,
But
it's mostly vegetarian. Okay, great. Yeah. So yeah, that's just an idea of like what happens over time. Does it change? But what happens in the moment? Like if you decide, Bart, I've been working real hard and I can't see my financial breakthrough, there's something holding you back. There's
mm,
something that you need to go through, whether it's a belief system or a value or just a bunch of bad habits. I think you mentioned before we jumped on the podcast to talk about some of our habits that do really well. And some of that is, just a simple to do list. I know that seems pretty fundamental for everybody, but, some people just don't have a system of little time management. And something like that could really help somebody. It's just like some people believe getting up at 5:30 a.m. is a way to succeed. I don't think that, by the way. I have no belief that getting up at 5:30 is going to make me wealthier.
probably true at our age. But okay, so let's watch
Who's
this little clip. You remember the movie The Matrix?
Oh yeah, one of my favorite films
Okay,
ever.
so
Fantastic.
this is one of my favorite scenes, and I think it has everything to do with belief. So let's watch it. It's just about a minute long, and we can discuss it. We can discuss it as we go.
Do not try and bend the spoon. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.
Mic drop.
There is no spoon?
Then you'll see that it is not the spoon that bends, it is only yourself.
The Oracle will see you now.
I love that.
That
Especially,
movie is so deep. on
such
so
a
many
great,
levels.
such a great scene, right? But it goes to exactly what we're talking about. He's seeing this kid, and his perception, his belief is that he has to bend the spoon. But what this kid, this Buddha, this whatever, this super talented, being in front of him is telling him that it's not the spoon that bends, it's your mind, right? It's you. And it's such a poignant, powerful point to what you're saying. It's all those beliefs that form who we are. Our belief, all that stuff on your chart, our belief, and this is what I'm learning from what I'm seeing you present, Bart. Our beliefs are us trying to bend that spoon like with our hand. But fixing that belief is us bending our mind. And then the spoon just falls down. Because the belief is bullshit. The fact that
most people are just waiting on evidence so they can change their beliefs. They're waiting for the coach to put them in so they can believe they're a good basketball player. They're waiting on someone to validate them so that they know they're lovable. And the fastest way to do it is reverse that. Put the belief first, and then the women would show up and love you, like a little kid or a high school kid. Or believe that you're good enough, like Michael Jordan did, even though he got cut from the basketball team in 11th grade, and work all summer. But he wouldn't have worked all summer on his free throws if he didn't believe he could actually be a great player. If he'd have believed his coach, like my coach, he was probably right at the time, I was a pretty bad basketball player. Like I really was like, okay, I'll make 2 points the whole season and I'll be happy about it. So he had a different belief than me. Maybe he had more talent, but what made him go back? He changed the belief first. He probably got mad. And that's an interesting. You don't have to do this from a Buddhist perspective. You can get mad if you get rejected or cut from the team. Sometimes that's good. Anger is passion. And then you're like, I'm going to go change something. I'm not as funny as I want to be. I'm not as talented. I'm not as smart. I missed that thing. Now, your Amazon students, they don't always hit a home run out at the gate. There's a lot of moving parts in that business, right? I mean, I bought keywords and ads, and like sometimes it doesn't work. But if they don't believe it, they may come back and go, Shaahin, you sure this is for me? Have you had that conversation in the last 10 years?
No, not like that. Usually, with my course. So for you guys who don't know, I run an Amazon course called Amazon Mastery. We are not one of the big, thousands of people course. We're very small. It's a small, tightly knit group. We have an Amazon mastermind, all of professional sellers who sell on Amazon, some making millions of dollars and some making $5,000-$10,000 a month, depending on the energy that they're putting into it. And we teach people how to succeed and make money on the Amazon platform, create predictable recurring revenue streams while you sleep. That's our job. So I teach that. I don't do it for the money. I do make money doing it, but I don't do it for the money. My money comes as being an Amazon seller. So to your point, my students, they start off with a belief that, and this is one of the most common beliefs, is that I can't sell products on Amazon because I don't know what to sell. And what we do when they come on board to the course, and we can move back on to beliefs, is that we get them out of that thinking loop and instead put in their mind, stop what you're doing. You're going to be following an algorithm. You're going to be following a system. You're not going to be following your gut. Play your hunch, it'll eat your lunch. One of my
I love that phrase.
yeah, when we used to count cards and play blackjack, one of my blackjack teachers taught us that. You don't play your hunch when you're playing blackjack in a casino. What you do is you play the system. You follow the system. If it's not working, there's a protocol for that. So that's what I get people to do in my Amazon course, Bart, is that I don't care what you like. You're not selling to you. You're going to find a product using the algorithms that we teach and have tested since 2008. You paid for the course. Now I want you to go in and follow the process. And if they follow the process, we have a 100% success rate. But you got to keep hitting that nail in the head sometimes. And sometimes you have the wrong hammer. You got to get a different hammer. Sometimes you got to, tweak and change and try different things. But eventually, if you follow the system, you follow the algorithms, you create a predictable revenue stream that becomes one of the pillars of consistent, predictable, recurring revenue. And when you have four pillars, another one being investing in real estate, which I know you've gotten heavily involved in the last several years, buying properties that are going to cash flow for you or that are cash flowing for you. Another one being investing in different markets, stocks, crypto, whatever it is that you're learning about and have an educated plan in. But when you have these four pillars, and the fourth one could be a job or a career or something that brings in consistent income so you can pay your rent while you're working out those other pillars, having that foundational thinking is what leads to the ultimate freedom of being able to do what you want, with who you want, when you want, and being able to give the middle finger to anybody who you don't like. Don't matter.
I like the defiance part of that. It's true. And, for some people, their motivation is defiance, or it is payback, or pride. That could be the motivation. For me, I think it's always been freedom. I really just love the idea of, just as a metaphor, jumping on my motorcycle and not know where I'm going. Like, I just have nowhere to be today, and I have nobody telling me what to do, and I don't have kids, and I don't have a wife right now, and it's just kind of like so much fun because I have freedom. So same thing in business. If I want to stop and record videos all day, I will, and if I want to travel to India for a week, or I will. And so for me, that's been the real motivation, moving towards something and adventure because of my values. But Shaahin, many, many years ago, I got super clear on what's important to me. And it's interesting, and I talk about this a lot in my courses as one of the key takeaways. I'm gonna give the ending away just to make the story shorter. It's much better if you kind of come upon it yourself, like a good book. But long story short, people value certain things: freedom, love, kindness. They value things, and everyone can't value everything equally. Like, some people value a clean kitchen, or they value security, like monogamy. And I valued all these things: fun, adventure, creativity, entertaining people. I did thousands of interviews on the morning radio shows. And I was having a seminar with a guy named Tad James. He was one of my first NLP teachers. You might be familiar with him. He's one of the old OGs of the NLP community. And he said something. He goes, look, after we've done all this exercise, which takes a good hour to figure out, he goes, if making money with the question, what's important to you about a career, is not in the top 5, you're probably not making money. And I was like, wait a second, but I wanted a career that was fun and creative and entertaining, but making money was not in the top 5 20 years ago. And it was so interesting. I went, holy cow, what am I willing to give up to make a profit or make money in that top 5? And it's just one small change. So, for example, I don't have to have fun in all my businesses all the time, but I have to make money in my businesses all the time, right? Like, real estate's not that much fun. We've been there managing people, pulling tiles or negotiating stuff, and I know it's been years since you've probably met with the maintenance guy, but it's not fun. But you know what it is? It's profitable, it's secure, it's residual, like so many things. So when I got clear that my own emotions were holding me back, I just literally made a switch. Okay, now that's going to be more important. Belief systems are the same way. If you find out that you believe that all rich people are bad, or that you have to have the security of a job, like, people that want security have a real hard time leaving a job, really hard time. And in order to be a really successful entrepreneur, you have to move security way down the line, because you may have ultimate security, like if you cash out, or you may go bankrupt. Like, those are real options when you start a new company. And if you can't handle that risk, you're going to stay at the post office for 25 years. And you know what happens to post office employees? They always end up shooting everybody. That's just a fact. I didn't make that up. It's just everybody knows. All of 100% do it. I'm teasing. Anytime someone says everybody knows or all the time, clearly not true. Which is kind of part of the language. There's a NLP technique called chunking up and chunking down, and they say things like all rich people are bad. And the way that you counteract that to yourself, say, okay, which rich people specifically are bad? Oh, yeah, well, Donald Trump, well, this, and Bernie Madoff. Yeah, you're right. Bernie Madoff was bad. Now, do you know any rich people that are good? Yeah, okay, he was good. And so you start chunking up and down, and these belief systems, like all people are X, they become BS. And you realize that all black people, all Republicans, all Democrats, all that's bull. If you chunk down enough, you'll find exceptions. And if you chunk up enough, you get stuck in this sort of, generalizations. And our brains love to generalize. That's why we still have racism and this political strife, because people generalize, but on a belief system level, personally, you're generalizing about money, about women, about things, about businesses, about crypto, about real estate, and then you're shooting yourself in the foot because you're not giving yourself an option to learn something new.
That's really good. Yeah. So you know what the origin of that is, though? Why we stereotype?
I can't wait to hear.
Survival. It's
Yeah.
a biological imperative that back in our ancestral times, right? We're talking many, many years ago, um, that if somebody looked a certain way, they presented a threat. If they moved a certain way, looked a certain way, smelled a certain way, scientists are proving this right now, that we would have a reaction to be on alert. And so maybe one time one of our ancestors would be hit on the head with a club. After being hit on the head with a club enough times, he knows that the guys that look a certain way, the guys that smell a certain way, guys that are acting a certain way, that look a certain way, guys or girls, that they pose a physical threat to them. So to this day, we do that. We stereotype people, and there, it's not PC to say that, oh no, that I don't stereotype or do you. We all do it because it's biological. You cannot get around it. It's like, so you can liken it to sexual arousal. Everybody gets aroused. So at something or another, nearly everybody. So if it's a biological imperative, you can't remove it. And what's funny is, the other night we had gone out to dinner with a bunch of friends, and we were at this nice restaurant, and, guy walks in and he's joining us. I did not know him. He was one of, many couples who was there. And then the wife comes in, and the wife has, it's very LA, fake boobs, plastic surgery, the fake nose, all the stuff, right? Wearing a very tight dress and high heels. And it's just that person, right? And the guy looks like an older white male, looks like he could be an accountant, right? And so immediately my mind goes there, and I start talking to the other people. I shake hands, do the polite thing, and then move on. And somehow, somewhere around the night, I'm seated next to him. And, this was towards the end of the night. And I start talking to the guy, and the stuff that I heard from this guy were incredible. I mean, this dude was a mixed martial artist. He was the CEO of several companies. He was into like esoteric texts of the 1960s and 70s. He had hung out with people that I only could look up to. And his wife, absolute sweetheart. And I just remember thinking to myself, we exchange numbers, and, we're going to hang out and be friends. But I thought to myself, like, crap, man, I'm such an asshole. Like, I stereotyped this guy, right? Like, he's like a banker, an accountant, whatever. It's like an old dude. Like, I just, I saw him and I stereotyped. And then I thought back to myself, like, what belief do I have? Well, okay. So I broke it down, and I was like, okay, so now, being someone who, thinks that he's, or tries to be self-realized, tries to look back at things and reflect, self-reflective, I think is what I'm trying to say. I reflected on that quite a bit. And I thought, man, I really need to, when I meet new people, to suspend judgment for a period of time. For me, I'm not telling anybody else to do this, but for me, because, in this specific case, I got the guy's information, and it's an opportunity to build a friendship and possibly a working relationship. But in the future, imagine I could have had a whole night of like super interesting conversation and created deeper bonds and connection and, all that kind of stuff, had I had suspended judgment. Have you ever had an experience like that?
Well, yeah, but I got to be honest with you. If you're having the conversation with yourself, like, am I being judge me? Am I being a racist? You're probably not a racist. It's the people that don't even have the self-awareness that don't even go, oh, that was really bad. I shouldn't have judged that person. I've lived all over the world, and I've done the same thing. And then you're right. They surprise you by their brilliance or kindness or something because you judge them. And you're right. We do have pattern recognition. If you're single, you're pattern recognizing for someone that matches your type. If you're out there, hustling to make a sale, you're going to ignore the homeless person. You're the one who told me they wouldn't sell you a $200,000 car when you were 19 because you had no shoes on, right?
Yeah.
Is that a right? Is that a right? Correct story? Have I got it
No,
right?
yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I walked into this dealership and, I had a briefcase full of cash, a duffel bag full of cash, ready to buy a brand new car. And the dealer wouldn't sell it to me because I didn't look the way he thought a buyer would look.
Yeah. So his
Uh,
pattern recognition cost him a commission, but we do it all the time. So no. But I think the fact that you're having that conversation says a lot about who you are in a good way, and not in a bad way.
Appreciate
I
that.
think that's really, really. But don't be too hard on yourself. But yeah, I love when I'm wrong. Like I love it. Like I just love when I look at it and go, okay, that person's going to be an idiot. I don't have anything to learn from him. And then you're like, man, this is the most interesting person at the party. I'm such a jerk.
Oh, dude. So I know you travel to India often. I know you're India famous, actually.
You're more so than in America. I think that's probably a fair statement. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we got married, me and my wife went to India for a pre-marriage, whatever. I was like, let's go on an epic trip. And so we go up to, and the chaos that is India, right? Like it's chaos. It's not like America. It's not like Europe. You don't go to a train station and just buy a ticket. Buying a ticket could be an all-day activity filled with complications that you never knew existed.
The word queue or line, like that doesn't exist in vocabulary. Like they don't even line up in America for the New Delhi flight. They just mill like ants. It's just a cultural thing.
It's chaos. It's chaos. So we go, I'm like, this is going to be a first class trip. I rented a yacht. We did all kinds of stuff on this trip, but I was like, you know what? We have to go from one part of the South to another part of the South. We're going to take the train, first class train. And the first class trains are pretty comfy, cushy, whatever. The economy, you don't really want to be in it. That's where like there's 100 people in like just one cab and they're like sleeping on top of each other. And it's, smelly and it's not a pleasant or cleanly place by any means. So I talked to the guy. I'm like, first class ticket. He says, yeah. First class ticket. I say it so many times. I get the tickets. I'm like, buddy, these don't say first class on them. And he's like, don't worry, first class. I'm like, So we wait an hour.
You're tilting your head just like that.
Just like that, right? So we wait an hour. We get in the thing. Of course, it's not first class. I have videos of all of this. Of course, it's not first class. Apparently, the time that he sold me the tickets, there is no first class. The first class came 20 minutes before, but he couldn't sell me that one because he thought I wanted this other one. So anyway, so we're on this train in economy class in India. And I know I sound very elitist and posh and whatever, but seriously, they're just not safe.
No. They bring buckets by full of food, and the people next to you. I've been on a train to Agra in third class. The lady next to me put her feet on me and fell asleep, and her feet hadn't been washed in 6 weeks. Like, you're not being a jerk.
Yeah.
It's just really not sanitary. We're not even exaggerating, guys.
No. And this was pre-COVID, of course. And so we're on this train, and I'm just like, all right, let's go. And then, to add insult to injury, what was supposed to be an hour and a half ride on the first class train is 8 hours. 8 hours on the economy
every
train.
Town. Yeah.
Because it's got to stop in every town every 2 minutes, and they get out and they sell the chutney and the this and the that, and they get back on. And so I'm like, all right, whatever, we'll be cool. I had an iPod at that time. I was like, we're going to listen to some music. We'll just chill. We're in love. We're in India. This is great. So we get in the train, and it's supposed to be one person per seat. And there's 2 seats at the bottom, one for me, one for my wife, 2 people sitting across from us, packed. And then above us in the one bed that's up there is a family of, I don't know, 8 or 9 Indian people.
In a bunk?
In a bunk. They had one ticket between the 9 of them, and they're having the greatest party up there. And I'm trying to sleep, and the guy's hand falls down from the thing, and I'm like, oh, and I grab his hand and I put it back on the bed, and then his other hand falls. And then, they're throwing seeds down. They're, all the stuff. I don't even want to discuss what the bathrooms were like there. And so I'm just furious. And my wife is looking at me, just trying to calm me down. She was my girlfriend at the time, but she's trying to calm me down. She just knows I'm going to explode. She just knows. I'm like, this isn't right. We were supposed to be paid for first class, whatever. And I'm furious at these people. Like, at this point, I am picturing like myself smashing those like demons or whack-a-moles or whatever up there in that bunk. And so I go, hey, and they're just not listening. So finally, my wife to be, was mortified, is staring at me. I climb up there. I pull the drape that they're putting to cover the single bed where there's 9 of them. And this absolute, I swear to God, she looked like an angel. Little girl comes out of there and she's like, "Hello, mister." And she reaches into her bag, and you can tell these people were of the lower, the lower caste, that they had nothing, into her little thing where she had a few like dried fruits and nuts, and she offers it up to me. And I'm furious. I'm like, and I'm just looking at her and I'm just melting. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, no. And then the dad comes out and he has made tea back there, some chai. I don't know how he made that chai, but he's made some chai and he's like, "Please have some chai." And my girlfriend's just looking at me like, just, and I was like, all right, let's do the chai. So now I'm up there on the bunk with this 9-person Indian family, this little girl sitting on my lap, the dad giving me the chai. They're sharing their food. I'm reaching down with bags, giving them food. And then I play this Bollywood song on my iPod for them. And we all start dancing on this train to this Bollywood song. And about 15 minutes later, I just look at myself and I'm like, oh my God, I'm such an asshole. I'm such an asshole for what I thought about these people above here. It's a perfectly lovely family that will give you literally the food from their plate that they don't have much of, the shirt off their back, and look at all these opinions that I had, all these beliefs that I had, without ever even really trying people, without really even trying to get to know them.
We have to relabel this episode just "Don't Be an A-hole."
Don't be an asshole. It's what was
how to hack a-holism.
Evil. Yeah, it's true, dude.
How to hack your preconceived notions and find joy in a train to Agra. I get it.
Can you say it in Osho's accent?
I'm not sure if my Osho is very good. It's more of an Indian when I do that, because Osho had sort of a shh. I want you to find the happiness. That kind of a little bit like a little German soldier right there, but he does a lot of S's. Yeah, Osho's a trip, man. If you've never seen like an Osho, now the documentary isn't fair because it's like the culty part of Osho, but if you see some of the videos, he was kind of like L. Ron Hubbard. He just filmed everything he did, and you're like, that guy's got something going on. That's really interesting. Like, he's got a good life. He believed in free love, and everybody loved each other, and people should be happy. Like, it's hard to argue his belief systems unless you really dig.
I would argue probably better studied than L. Ron Hubbard. He was a professor of philosophy, had read 10,000 books. And if you listen to his lectures, towards the end of his life, when he was, down in the gas and, he was on nitrous and, he was going through, great turmoil and his health was deteriorating. His lectures aren't as cogent or coherent. Sure. But in the earlier phase, just like you're saying, the stuff he was talking about, he was talking against cults. He was talking against religion, which is kind of funny. He was really in a very sophisticated way telling people to think for themselves and making a mockery of what was that time's new age spirituality. And the people within, this is the interesting thing where we go back to talking about belief structure, the people within were so embedded in it that they believed that they couldn't be part of the joke that he's telling. That's how sophisticated this guy was, right? It's almost like, we can't be part of a crazy sex cult, those people are crazy. And everybody just cracks up laughing, but they're all in the sex cult.
And they're all running around dancing naked. That's fine.
Dancing naked. Yeah. Yeah. And it's another one of those things where, a lot of people were profoundly transformed by this person, but it's nuanced. On the other end of the spectrum, a lot of people were hurt. And that's always the case when you give somebody your power. If you abdicate your power to another human being that's flawed and fallible, be it a priest, be it a guru, whoever it is. And this is actually one of the things I got from your short film that you made about gurus, is that if you abdicate to one of these people, a belief system, a religion, any of these kinds of things, even a life partner, if you abdicate your power to them, that is your weakness. That is how you fail. because they're going to take that and they're going to use it for what serves them. It's part of game theory. Everybody does what's in their own best interest. As long as what's in your best interest and what's in their best interest is aligned, there is a likelihood that they will do that. Otherwise, they're going to do what serves them the best. It's back to what we're talking about, survival and evolution. We do what's in our own best interest. Our genome did what it's in its own best interest to survive, right? There was probably hundreds, thousands, millions, I don't know, I'm not a scientist by any measure, but of genomes, but we've got the one that survived because it, as Richard Dawkins says in his book, The Selfish Gene, it's constantly doing what it needs to survive. And that's why we're here. And people think that way too. So I think the important lesson about following people is that you can learn lessons from anybody. I'm sure we could learn lessons from the worst of humanity. A mentor of mine told me once, every person you meet will teach you something or can teach you something. But at the end of the day, you cannot abdicate your power to them. I was watching one of these shows about one of these religions, which I won't name here because I don't want to offend anybody at the moment. But this lady had gone through and she'd been part of this religion, and it helped her at first, and then she realized it was about aliens and some wacky thing, and she tried to get out and they wouldn't let her out, and she had to escape, and she produced a TV series on it and all that. But at the end of the day, there came a point where her parents abdicated their power to this belief structure. And that belief structure took over because it was doing what was best for it, not what's
as an entity, as a organism. That church or that ideology became an entity. That's what a corporation is. It keeps growing, right?
Yeah. Just like Bartology.
I did that. Sand. I had 108 people laugh at that joke very much. Thank you very much. Live. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, my stand-up, I make fun of religion, and I have a fake religion called Bartology that I have invented. And of course, obviously, it's satire. One would know that if you knew me, but maybe you don't. If you just catch a clip of it, you're like, that guy really wants to be a cult leader. No, I'm not mean enough, and I can't lie enough to be a cult leader.
Yeah, but it could be fun. So, all right, guys. So I think we're heading towards the end of this episode of Think and Grow Rich. I'm your host, Shaahin Cheyene. I run a Amazon program called Amazon Mastery. For anybody who's listening to this, if you would like to try to sell on Amazon, or if you would like to do better than that and do sell on Amazon, I have a free 1-hour course. It's available at fbasellercourse.com, or just email me on the show notes. My email and contact information is on there. I respond to all emails directly, and myself or someone in my staff gets back to people pretty quickly. Although if I'm responding, it may take a minute, so please be patient. But reach out, and I'm happy to give you a free copy of that. Make sure to check out my other podcast, which is Billion, How I Became King of the Thrill Pill Cult. And Bart, how do we get a hold of you? Bart, I want to get your book for free. How do I get your book for free?
So I built a website called getbartsbook.com. That was pretty simple. Getbartsbook.com. And that's the magic question. If you put a /free, you can get the Rich and Happy book, which is a 450-page book. There's some videos. About half my audiobook is on there. But, that's a great introduction. If you guys like what I'm saying, go do a little deep dive, read some of the books. I'm doing 4 or 5 seminars on Zoom every month. You just got to be part of the email list. But yeah, join our community. I promise not to make a religion out of you. Bartology's all humor, but the self-help stuff's pretty good. You might like it. Getbartsbook.com and join our community. And of course at Instagram at bartbaggett.com. I'm trying to get past that 10,000 person mark, Shaahin, at Bart Baggett on my Instagram.
We can hack that. We'll get you there.
We're going to hack that. That's what we need to do. That's what we need. Hack that and that new Ferrari. Or is it a Porsche I want? I forget. You're driving the Porsche. I'll take the Ferrari.
There you go. All right,
hey,
ladies and gentlemen.
Guys. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, great show. Thank you so much. Join us next week, where hopefully we will have on a special guest, which I'm not going to talk about on this episode, but it will be revealed. So stay in touch, Instagram, Facebook, contact us, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much.